To face the Grizzlies in a preseason tournament, we have the San Antonio Spurs. Jake, real quick, do you have their over under? Because that'll be
I
interesting.
do. I do. They are 29 and a half, the first under 30 that
29
we
and a
have.
half. Man, they are trying to entice some people in, aren't they?
They are. They
Uh,
want the Wimby money.
they want the Wimby money. I'm sure that there's plenty of it. Um, let's see. Let me bring up their depth chart. All right. So we have Jeremy Sohan, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Victor Wembanyama,
Yeah.
Zach Collins starting, and then off the bench we have Trey Jones, Malachi Branham, Julian Champagne,
Champagne, I think. It's like a
Champagne.
like penny, yeah.
Oh, that's right. I've heard that. Seti Osman, Charles Bassey, Devontae Graham, who's suspended. I'm not sure how long he's suspended off the top of my head. And then that's about all we've got. Sandro Mamukelashvili.
It's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That was my first crack at that one. That was unrehearsed. um, so let's just talk about Wimby real quick. Let's not talk about the Spurs for a second. I've
Yeah.
watched a little bit of Wimby. I've watched 2 of the preseason games. Um, the first one that I watched, there were multiple moments where I just went, I've never seen that. Never seen that. I've never seen a guy that's 7'5" that's that athletic and that coordinated. Like I was thinking, I even thought instead of like the pound for pound fighters, where
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, of course the big guys can knock the little guys out. Like whatever the opposite of that, that's what Wimby is. He is the tallest, most coordinated. If you're multiplying height time coordination to whatever that is, he is the most that we've ever seen of that. And the best example that I remember seeing wasn't even really like a basketball play. It was after they were on defense. He was at the top of the key. Something happened. They called a foul. The guy hucked a shot up and it hit like the front of the rim and it bounced back towards Wimby. And he's looking the other direction, but out of his peripheral, the ball starts bouncing towards him and he kicks it. Like he back heels it up into the air and then like goes to grab it. And I was like, I've never seen a 7'5" guy that's that coordinated to
Yeah.
do some kind of little soccer move. And he wasn't trying to be impressive or anything. It was just a reaction.
Yeah. The reflex,
But
yeah.
he's so limber. He's so coordinated. Like Kristaps Porzingis would just let that ball go. Like there was nothing in Kristaps's mind that would be like, let me reach out for that ball with my foot. And you just see him get around the floor. Like whenever you watch him, like it's the little things. Cause I'm always just worried about like your knees. And, I've
Hmm.
just seen it happen with too many guys. Like whenever the possession switches, in transition, the way that he plants and he turns and he gets going the other way, it doesn't look like it hurts. And whenever you're
No.
over 7'2", it usually looks like it hurts. I've seen those pictures of him stretching out. Like he's the most flexible 7'5" guy of all time. Like he can put his elbows past his toes. Like it's ridiculous. And so ever since I first heard about Wimby and first saw Wimby, I've just been like, I don't know if I've ever seen a guy that looks like that have a healthy long career. And so I've just always been skeptical from that point of view. But I've never seen not just that length, but that fluidity. I mean, it's something else to watch him get up and down a court. And so I have plenty of other thoughts about his game, but just have you watched him? What was your
Yeah.
first impression? Is what jumps out to you as, you know, Victor Wembanyama?
Yeah. I watched him, they played some of his games on League Pass last year in France. And then seeing him in summer league, he had the slow start to that game. It looked like he was definitely nervous. Then he's been great in preseason. Like you can tell that was an aberration that first game in Vegas for summer league.
Yeah, that was
Just
not a great
nerves, right?
showing.
There was more people at that game in Vegas for summer league than his first preseason game, and probably his first game of the season against in San Antonio. But you can tell he's just going to have his mark on the court in so many different ways, and he's going to allow them to really form a scheme around him where you use him, and he just like offensively and defensively is just your main, I guess, either your main scorer or your main rim protector or something like that. I think it's just going to be the obviously most people point to the size and the health factor, but like you said, he may be a one of one when it comes to his background in yoga and flexibility and how he's been working on his body in that regard for a long time, even though he's only like 18 or 19. So maybe the injuries won't be as big of a concern for him as they would be for, like a Chris Stapps or another player of that kind of build. But he's going to be incredible to watch. I hope that he can play, 60 plus games. I think that would be great to see him out there for
Do you
60
think
plus
they want
games.
him to? Do you think they
That's
want
the
him
other
playing
thing.
60 games?
I was going to lead into saying that, I think they're going to be fun to watch at first, but I don't think they're going to be good. And I think they're probably going to slow play him. I don't know if they'll hold him out as much as they would in the past, just because they've got the games played mark for the postseason awards now. They've got the emphasis, the emphasis on like players being out there, and so maybe he will play, 75% of the games, something like that.
Yeah.
80% of the games. That would probably put him around that 60 to 65 number. But I think I don't think they're going to have much of a emphasis on winning as much as like getting him run, figuring out what players they have on the roster now are going to be players they want. I mean, Vassell signed for an extension the other day. Sohan's young. Keldon Johnson's pretty good. There's a couple of other young wings they have, but there's not a lot on the roster that like I think is good, is long for that team. Like they'll probably be by the next 2 to 3 years, they'll look a lot different.
Yeah. I'm not big on them as a team. I don't
No,
think that they're doing anything. I mean, I know that this is our first over under that's under 30. I
I'd
mean,
lean under
yeah, what was their record last year?
22-60. I think I just looked at it.
22-60.
And they don't really have a point guard. I mean, Trey Jones, Tyus's younger brother, is interesting, but I don't think he's as good as Tyus.
Oh,
And
he's definitely not as good as
he's
Tyus.
he's not as good as Tyus. And I don't like a bad team that doesn't have a point guard, they're going to be even worse. So, I
Right.
think
And
it's
I
going to be tough.
watched Sohan the other night in the Rockets preseason game. He's not the guy that you want initiating your offense. And like Devin Vassell can shoot. He can shoot.
Yeah.
He was knocking him down the other night. And like Zach Collins is a scrappy guy, but Wembanyama is way farther away from being a dynamic playmaker on the offensive end than he is on the defensive end.
Yeah.
Like he can get his three off, sure, but if you go watch his possessions, the possessions that he doesn't score on, it's not great. Like yeah, he can get to his little shot, especially in transition. Like there was a debate going on the other day on NBA Twitter about who's the better scorer, Melo or KD. And I've just always thought that KD is the most lethal transition scorer ever.
Yeah.
Because the way that he can stop and pull up lengthwise, with his length from a 3-point, like I just remember being a Grizzlies fan and being terrified of that. And so I think that you're going to see that from Wembanyama at some point, maybe. But like the pick and roll, like you're not running him through a pick and roll. As far as like the ball handler, he's not a point forward. He's not a Jokic yet. He doesn't have any of that skill set yet. He can shoot. He can get his shot off. But other than that, he's just a rim runner on the offensive end. And don't get me wrong, he's a great rim runner because he's 7'5". But if you've got Jeremy Sohan running the show, and you really only have Devin Vassell as the one outside shooting threat, I just don't see how they're putting up a ton of points. And if you're not playing Wembanyama 30 minutes a night, which I don't think that they should, then I just don't think that there's enough defensive impact for them to put up points. So I watched that game the other night. Wembanyama played 20 minutes. His plus minus was plus 16. Like whenever he went out of the game for the first time, the score 17-2. And I seriously rewound it, and I was like, let me watch these possessions. And then he got out of the game, and I was like, oh, let me fast forward to whenever Wembanyama's not in. And I was like, wait. Let me watch this defense without him on it now. And just imagine if you add his length to one of these players, what it would look like. And I mean, his defensive impact, whenever people look at it statistically, is going to be insane. Yeah. I just don't think they have any offensive weapons to keep up with anybody in the West. Like they're just going to have a tough schedule because they're in the West.
They're going to find themselves in that bottom 5 in the league pretty easily. Even having some competitive games, I think like they're still just not. And that's probably what they want. They're going to add another top 5 talent to that roster, and that's going to be probably what their goal is.
Yeah, let me look at their capital.
Yeah, they've got some picks. And they
have quite a few picks next year. They have LA's number 2 pick. They have their own first rounder. They have Charlotte's first rounder, top 14 protected, and they have Toronto's first rounder, and that's only top 6 protected. So if they suck, they have a lot of incentive to suck because they want to be in the bottom 6 because that's another team that Toronto can't be. Like if that's top 6 protected, it's like, well, we'll go ahead and take one of those slots. There's no reason to rush. And I've heard on some other podcasts, which I love all the other podcasts. Shout out Ryan Russillo, Bill Simmons, and the Mismatch guys. I love all them. But I've heard some talk about like, well, is there a chance that they make a move if they think that they're close with Wembanyama? Look at this roster. None of these guys would be current championship rotation guys. None of them are the caliber. You wouldn't trust any of these guys in a single playoff game, not in a play-in game, nothing. There's no reason for these guys to want to go to the playoffs. All they're going to do is ruin their picks. And so this is 29.5 is low, and I know that there's a lot of Wembanyama talk, but that's what, 8 wins better than last season? I just don't see it.
It's going to be tough, and I think overall a lot of the bottom teams are going to be better than last year. Like the Rockets, I think will be more competitive than last year, and I just don't think they're going to get the wins. I don't think they're going to get the wins they'll be able to probably put Wemby on the shelf for the last 10 games of the year if they want to.
Probably so.
And that's saying if he doesn't have any injury problems, we don't know. Like I think he's going to be better in that regard than some, like we said, but you never know. Like they may slow play it if he has a bruised foot or like a sore quad or something. It's like, it's 3 games instead of 1.
Yeah, I think if you saw any injuries like from the waist up, they probably, they might throw a little bit of caution to the wind. But anything that's from the hips down, where you're worried about him just being able to get around on the floor, they've got to show tons of caution. And you obviously just hope the best and that you never see an injury from it. But it's whenever you're talking about the bets and future predictions, you just have to keep it in the back of your mind. So we'll go ahead and do our head-to-head matchup. I'll go first. I'll take the Grizz. I think just
pretty easy,
position by position. I would love to see a Steven Adams Wembanyama matchup though. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yes,
because because Wemby's still real thin, and to see him get pushed around, like I can't wait for the Grizzlies matchups against the Spurs. I'm going to be watching a lot of the Spurs just because. Never seen anything like this kid. That's for sure.
I was just looking at that actually. The first Ja Morant Grizzlies matchup with the Spurs, so that we can see him test Wemby at the rim.
Oh, dude,
that'll be great.
Dude, I was thinking the same thing. I was like,
January 2nd.
I cannot wait to see Ja try to put him on a poster because he's going to do it.
He's going to try for sure. And that's game 31, January 2nd, Grizzlies Spurs. That'll be when it happens in Memphis.
In Memphis. That might be, I might have to come back for that one.
The only guy flying back for the Spurs game in January 2nd.
Man, I'm telling you, like, I love seeing these special guys whenever, like, their first or second season. Like I saw Giannis, like it wasn't his rookie season, obviously, because he didn't have the buzz, but the first year there was buzz around Giannis, I went and saw him. I saw Luka his rookie year, and he just torched the Nuggets with his little step back three. Like, I love seeing these guys whenever they first get in the league. Just because you can tell in person whether they've got something or they don't. Obviously, Wemby's got something. So,
definitely,
all right.
Definitely.
We just spent way too much time on a team that's going to be bottom 5 of the league, but whatever.
Oh, I take the Grizzlies over them as well.
Yeah. All right, next. Oh, this should be fun. Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah.
Let's see what we've got here.
Their over-under is, just off the top, 49.5. So one of the higher ones we've seen.
What?
Yeah. I think that may have dropped. This may be like an opening line. I think I remember hearing that it dropped to like 46 or 47 because of the Harden stuff. But we can just keep it with the same. I guess these are probably the opening lines.
Yeah, I've got 47.5 here live on FanDuel.
We'll take that.
FanDuel, as soon as you guys want to sponsor us, we will take it.
Yeah, we will take all of that gambling money.
47.5, that's still high.
Very.
That's still really high.
Yeah, that's high to me. I mean, you get into the roster in a second, but that, like, even with Harden, I think that's a tough, like, if you're getting a full, like, last year engaged Harden season, which he played at an all-star level, potential all-NBA level, last year they won 54 games. They had an MVP season, pretty healthy Joel Embiid season.
Right. That's
still a lot in a better Eastern Conference. Like, I know it's a drop off of like 7 wins, but like, I think there's enough uneasiness there now that would not be surprising.
Yeah, they were 54-28 last year, and their current roster looks like James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, PJ Tucker, Joel Embiid, which is a pretty good starting lineup.
Pretty good,
especially if you're rewinding 2 years. And then they have off the bench Pat Bev, which is a big pickup for them. DeAnthony Melton, Kelly Oubre Jr. What's his nickname?
Oh, I can't remember, but it's funny.
It's something stupid. Paul Reed, Danny Green, Mo Bamba, Furkan Korkmaz, Jaden Springer, and Daniel House Jr. are probably all the names that we've all heard.
Danny Green, also potentially the Tim McMahon's unnamed source in the recent Ja Morant story, maybe.
Oh, really?
No, that was just some memes, and I mean, it could be, but that was the memes and the rumors, the jokes on Twitter.
I didn't read any of that swill. I'm not reading national pieces about Ja Morant.
We're past that.
That's the most race baited.
That was bad.
It's just terrible. It's ridiculous. Anyway, free Ja. # free Ja. I thought this was America. It's the Second Amendment country. What are we doing here?
I agree. So the Sixers, the Sixers, I like this. I like their roster. Mm-hmm. Like, I think they've got some good depth. I agree that Pat Bev the dude works everywhere he's been. he like he really provides like a winning attitude, even though he's like he has antics, but like they're antics that are like that guy who takes pressure off the star because he's the one talking, but like understands his role every night, but is able to bug the shit out of the other team enough to where he's playing above his talent level. And I think it's a good pickup. I think they've gotten some depth pieces. Oubre's decent. He's young enough. Melton's good. Paul Reed, I actually think, showed a little bit. I don't like the depth behind Embiid, honestly. I mean, Reed's kind of a 4-5. Mo Bamba never really done anything. But yeah, I mean, it really comes down to Harden. I'll let you go off.
Yeah, the thing that you just wonder about Harden, obviously, this season is if they move him, which seems to be the goal. If they move him at some point during the season, are they bringing back capital or are they bringing back a piece? And that's kind of, I feel like that's what you're betting on here. It's 7 games below what they won last year. You mentioned the MVP season that they had. You also had an Embiid that was motivated to win an MVP, and an Embiid that was motivated to play as many games as he could and as many minutes in those games as he physically could. Aside from his health issues that you always have to worry about, you also just have, I would just take into consideration there that there's not a motivation for him to play a 36th and 38th minute in a game against, say, like the Orlando Magic. Like, it's, the incentive is not there. And so with that on the table, this team probably is not going to be fighting for a 1 seed, probably not fighting for a 2 seed. Just as an organization, it's probably not as high on their list because they know that they're only worried about playoff success now that the MVP season's been ticked off. But I think I could see them getting to 48 wins if Harden plays his ass off for the first couple of months and then gets traded and they're able to bring back something that matters, something that can at least play. To the Pat Bev point, he's the ultimate guy that you hate if he's not on your team. If Pat Bev came to the Memphis Grizzlies, I'd be excited, but he's yet to be there, and so I still hate him. But they have Mr. Do something. They have DeAnthony Melton. I love Melton off the bench, and so this is one that, again, I know this is kind of another cop out, but I'm just not touching this over under because I don't know what the motivations of people are. I don't know the play time, like the amount of games and minutes that people are going to be playing. But I think that if they retool correctly, that this is still a dangerous team in the Eastern Conference. And I would be surprised if they are not a top 5 seed. I would be surprised to see them in the play-in tournament.
Yeah, I would be too. It would be, I think the thing is if, because you can't, we try to rationalize and logically think about these holdout situations with players like Harden, but it never happens in a logical way because that's not the way that the star is usually thinking. But logically, James Harden coming back, he's not getting a contract from anybody this season. It's literally impossible. It's not allowed with his contract. So he has to play this season and get a contract next year. It would behoove him to play with with the former MVP and the reigning MVP and a good roster with a new coach in Nick Nurse, who's going to be better than Doc Rivers. I have no doubt about that. And like I said, a team that could be a top 4 seed in the East and make some noise and then get his new contract in the offseason, but doesn't seem like that's going to happen. But like you said, even without Harden, I think this is a good team with a good coach that's going to be motivated to make his mark. And I think Maxi's going to be the type of player that if he's given the keys with Nurse is going to respond to that coaching. In my opinion, I think he's just a really good player. And I think Embiid's ready for that type of like kind of, I don't know, more intensity from a head coach. So
Yeah, and that's what I meant about retooling. If they do move away from Harden, is that Maxey is, or at least showed flashes towards the last part of last year, that he could be a solid number two offensive option, to where you don't need a guy like James Harden running the show, like such a ball dominant guy. Uh, I wouldn't hate seeing Maxey run his own pick and rolls.
Yeah.
You don't. I don't think Maxey is a spot up shooter. I think that he's a guy that works a lot better in the flow of the offense. And as we've known for years, like, there's just not a whole lot of flow when it comes to James Harden's offense.
No, it's his flow. Yeah, the balls needs to be in his hands.
Yeah, and the other thing, this is kind of a larger point to how I feel the season's going to go. It's LeBron's 21st season, but I feel like this is a season where we're really going to start to feel like a changing of the guard. Like, some of these guys that we've known for pretty much like our entire fandom of the NBA, it's like, I feel like there's so much young athletic talent with rosters like we'll talk about with the Thunder at some point, where it's just like this big hoopla. If James Harden leaves, where's he going to go and how that's going to affect? I don't think that James Harden is moving the needle anywhere.
Nope.
He had two really good games in the playoffs last year. Okay. He said, I just don't think that he's the guy anymore. And I don't think at that age, whenever you blatantly just don't really do a whole lot with your body over the course, they say he's in great shape right now, but I'm just talking about over the years. Like, he hasn't really done a whole lot to keep himself at the top of his physical prime. And I just think there's too much young talent to, James Harden's way down on the list of players that I would entertain having on my team and being happy about it. And so
the league feels the same way. I mean, the Clippers are the only team trying to trade for him that are even offering anything. And so I think you're right. I don't think he really affects much. I don't even like the idea of him on the Clippers in that roster. I think that's just a weird mess of things thrown together. So, but we'll see if he gets his way. I mean, it's tough to say what I think they should do. I think they should just wait it out, because I don't think they're going to get that much in return anyway. I think that I would just wait it out and see if, like, you maybe can get him to actually play and care.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, is it like, do you just try to dump his salary somewhere and get some picks from somebody that's just saying screw it? Like,
Yeah. If you could get the
like
Clippers to do 2 unprotected picks and be like, okay, we won't take Terrence Mann, but we'll do 2 unprotected future picks and your salary filler, we'll go with that. Then I would do it, just because those Clipper picks I think are going to be like gold in probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
But other than that, like that's I would do something like that.
Yeah, or maybe like a 3-teamer where you bring in like a suitable backup point guard and you move some picks around. I just don't see Harden being there long term. And if the Sixers are serious about their championship window here, then they can't hold on to James Harden, in my opinion. You're not. I don't see how you're winning a championship with that type of offense. And I'm anti Embiid in the playoffs. We can talk about that later in the season, but I just don't think that Embiid's skill set works in a slow game where every possession matters, but people can shoot the lights out from 3-point. I just don't. Yeah. It doesn't work for me.
And he hasn't been able to stay healthy generally in the playoffs. It just hasn't been a thing he can do. So,
well, not just healthy. I mean, he's a big guy and he's a thick guy. And I remember watching last year, and it just seemed in the fourth quarter, his field goal attempts were very low in the fourth quarter. I don't know exactly what they were, but they drastically dropped off. And it was like you couldn't run it through him because they were making him work on the defensive end. And on the offensive end, he just couldn't keep up.
Yeah. He gets gassed.
Yeah, he gets gassed.
It's a long season for a dude that big, for that carrying that load. So
a long time. And so, all right, we'll go matchup here. Grizzlies Sixers. We both still have the Grizzlies moving on.
Yeah,
Jake, you can go ahead.
it's fun to have the Grizzlies this early so we can get a lot of fake wins for the
I promise
Grizzlies.
this wasn't planned.
It wasn't. I'd take Memphis over them, even with Harden. If we're going to take, if we're going to have Ja in this scenario, we have Harden in this scenario bought in. I'd still would take. I would take the Grizzlies in that matchup.
I would also take the Grizz. I just think if you're going head-to-head matchups up and down the line, I think that there's just more advantages going the Grizzlies' way, whether it's athleticism at the point guard position, shooting at the wings, on down the bench, as well as versatility on the front line. Once you get past Embiid, I'd love to see Mo Bamba come out, and show out. But again, I got to see it first. I got to see it at least for a little bit. And at some point, I don't know when PJ Tucker is no longer a rotation player in the NBA. It might not be this season. He might have another good season this year. But at some point, for all of these guys, it kind of runs out, and whenever you're deficient in a lot of areas, it can run out pretty quickly whenever it starts to go. So
yeah, it can drop off a cliff pretty quickly.
I'll take the Grizz as well. All right. Next on the list. Whew. All right. This should be quick. The Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you even need to read their roster? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Actually, I do need to read the roster. This is probably one that I'm not too familiar with.
Yeah.
Okay. We have LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, PJ Washington, Mark Williams. And then off the bench, we have Nick Smith Jr., Cody Martin, number 2 overall pick, Brandon Miller. Or was he 3?
It was 2 over.
No, he was 3. Scoot was 2. He was 3.
That's right.
Brandon Miller's 3. JT right. Thor, Nick Richards, Edmund Sumner, Bryce McGowan's, Nathan Mensah, and then hopefully not on the team anymore, Miles Bridges.
Yeah.
But he's still listed. He's suspended. Then they have Theo Maladon and Frank Ntilikina.
No 25-game suspension for Miles Bridges. Kind of funny.
Weird how law-abiding citizens and felons are treated so differently in the eyes of Adam Silver. But this is a roster that you just don't feel too many things about. I do like Mark Williams. The few Hornets games that I sat down and watched last year, I thought that he was really athletic, like a big impact guy on the defensive end. If they go to shit, like if they tank the first half of the season and the ship's going down, I could see, a contender maybe giving up a decent amount of capital for a guy like Mark Williams. There's nobody else on the team that I really see them being able to get out from underneath. They're not moving LaMelo unless it's a huge package, because if you move LaMelo, you don't have a team anymore. Like you have, as far as like the fandom and the excitement that's in-house already, you're only looking forward to draft picks at that point. No one's coming to see Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier and PJ Washington do their thing. So LaMelo's stuck there. I said on the night that LaMelo got drafted, as soon as he went to the Hornets, that's the last you ever heard of LaMelo Ball. We've still hear of him because he's still talented. But as far as the conversation in the NBA, his career has been completely irrelevant so far. And so their win total last year, do you have their
27 last year,
27
31, 31 and a half updated on FanDuel. I mean, I think LaMelo, who missed basically the entire season, I think him being back is probably worth a few wins. But this is just a sadly run franchise, just really like a desolate area for talent to go. It's poor. I mean, they brought Steve Clifford back as a coach. They got rid of a guy, James Borrego, who like seemed interesting, got him to the playoffs, and then it's like it's just a poorly run franchise. There's a lot of talk on NBA podcasts of like the who's going to ask out next, right? And somebody that I haven't heard anybody bring up is LaMelo. Like, why would LaMelo not ask out of this situation after 25 games when it's a complete mess and they're not headed anywhere? Like, we haven't heard, like, LaMelo has been more muted, in my opinion, than people thought coming into the league. Like, I think he's a great player, talented. He wants to win. I think a lot of people thought there was going to be a lot more antics. There hasn't been, but I think we could kind of see that bubble up to the top and him ask out. I mean,
So,
LeVar Ball's back in the news again. He's re-releasing some new shoes, so I think maybe a sleeper, sneaky ball season.
so I know Damian Lillard kind of has messed with the precedent set, but LaMelo did sign his max extension this summer, just 2 months ago.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing is that
260 million, and
he probably would. Yeah, he wouldn't be able to be traded, but
everything changed with Dame. Dame just signed the extension. Dame just signed the max extension, and then asked for a trade. It was always the unwritten rule that if you want to leave, you can leave, but don't sign the extension and then say that I'm not going to play for this team anymore. But I can't see LaMelo doing that. LaMelo doesn't seem like that kind of guy, even whatever your thoughts of his dad's influences.
No, I love LaMelo.
So
he's been a good player. He's been a good, like, I've respected the way he's played. Like he's been good. I just think, like, if you're thinking of something, like, you'd be totally wake up surprised on a Monday morning to like LaMelo's dropped something in the media through Shams.
Right.
I wouldn't be like, it wouldn't catch me totally off guard given just the no direction of this franchise.
Yeah, and I mean, at the same time, it's just like, well, of course he's not happy there. Like, that's not even breaking news. Of course he would rather be traded and go somewhere else. But yeah, it looks like he's locked in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and put me down for the Grizz.
Yeah, me as well.
Walk off. Not that this has been super pro Grizz right here. We've had a couple teams that I would have taken the Pacers over. I would have taken the Magic. I would have taken the Heat. So we're just working our way through here for any freaking Grizz haters. All right. Next up on the list, we have the New Orleans Pelicans. I'm shocked. It's the first I'm hearing of this. Last season, the Pelicans ended 42-40. They were eliminated from the postseason in the first round of the play-in tournament at home by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Which wasn't a shock to anyone that watched basketball last year, but not something that you would expect looking at the standings going into it. And their current roster in the preseason tournament is constructed as CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Herbert Jones, Zion Williamson, Jonas Valanciunas, Jose Alvarado, Dyson Daniels, Trey Murphy III, Najee Marshall, Larry Nance Jr., Cody Zeller, Jordan Hawkins, Kira Lewis, Trey Jemison, not sure who that is, Jalen Crutcher to round out the end of the bench and the hype section there in New Orleans. I haven't watched any Zion preseason. He's played in the preseason, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's looked good. I mean, he's looked like Zion looks when he actually plays. So, I mean, he looks like normal. I mean,
I mean, he doesn't look like Zion from high school jumping out of the gym.
No,
I know he's not doing that.
No, he definitely doesn't do that. He looks like the Zion of recent memory that is explosive on offense and doesn't try on defense. So that's where that is.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good roster. I'd say it's one of the better rosters in the West. I mean, there's some good rosters out there. Um, just as for his entire career, it will come down to the health of Zion Williamson and his ability to stay on the floor for more than 22 games. And whenever he plays, he both by eyeball test and statistically is something that I'm not sure that we've ever seen. His ability to bulldoze his way from the top of the key with the ball and finish around the rim is something that doesn't seem repeatable. And yet, if he's on the floor, he can do it over and over and over and over. Some of the scoring company that he's in through the first few games of a career, even though we're going on his 5th season now.
Yeah.
And so, it's or 4th season. 4th season?
I think it's 5th. 4th or 5th, yeah.
I think it's 4th.
I mean, if we're talking games played, it's like the second half of
right. That's what I mean. He's still only a few games into his career, but he's quite a few seasons.
Yeah, has he made it 82?
Has he?
Yeah, this is the 4th year. You're right. This is the 4th. This will be the start of the 5th year in the NBA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I like the rest of the team. I like BI. I like CJ. I think Herbert Jones is the kind of wing that you need on this team. He's not a star, but he's the kind of guy that you want that's versatile, especially whenever you have a guy loafing around on D like Zion does. I've always loved Valanciunas since his days in Memphis. I think that he's a stud. I think that he brings a lot. I think he's really undervalued across the league. I think that he's one of the top centers. I hated seeing him leave Memphis. And if it wasn't for Steven Adams' likability, I'd still be upset about it. Off the bench, while they seem to have options, I'm not sure what this offense looks like. I'm not sure if this is a true second unit. I've always been a pro Larry Nance guy. I think Trey Murphy's talented. I think Jose Alvarado's got a little CJ McCollum in him. Or sorry, not CJ, some TJ
McConnell, yeah.
Yeah, TJ McConnell in him. He definitely brings the crowd into it. My only question is there going to be a crowd to bring into it at these home games for the Pelicans? It seems like one of the more apathetic fan bases that we've got. And if Zion's not playing, I guarantee you they're going to continue to be apathetic. And so, what do you have their over under handy?
Yeah, so their over under is 44.5 wins, which is, I mean, they won 42 last year, I think you said. Yeah. One thing to note too is that Trey Murphy's going to be out for a few months with a knee thing. So there's not really a timetable on that yet. I don't think he's going to miss the whole season, but probably through to Christmas, maybe.
Yeah. At only 3 wins above their total last year and how much Zion played last year, it seems that Vegas thinks that Zion's not playing a full season either.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I wanted to note too. And I'm sure a lot of people's breakdown of the Pelicans is a similar route, but you have to look at the availability question for them. And I mean, Zion, he's played 24 games, 61 games, 0 games, and 29 games in the 4 years that he's played. So only one time did he play more than 29 games. And that was, that's the second highest total of his career was last year. And I just don't know. The team still feels new, even though the core has been together for 2+ years, like Brandon Ingram and Zion. I don't really know. I don't really know that much. Like, I don't really know if I like or don't like Willie Green or if he's good or he's not good. I don't really feel like he's that good. They have some interesting stuff. I like Herb Jones. I like Dyson Daniels. I think they should play Dyson Daniels a lot this year. McCollum is interesting. I don't know. They don't really have a true point guard. Alvarado, like you said, is a TJ McConnell type, but he's not a starter. So I'm not a big fan of the Pelicans. I've been it's always been a joke, the Pelicans Grizzlies rivalry when John Zion came into the league, the non-existent rivalry in my opinion.
Mhm.
But I just don't know. I mean, it feels right. I feel like they're going to be if they get, I don't really know. You can't really project the type of season they're going to get from Zion because it's so been all over the place. But if Zion and Ingram are healthy for 70% of the year, 75% of the year, they probably are around what they were last year, 42 to 45 games. I that's where I would probably have them. Probably in the play-in is where I would have them at the top. Best case to me, there's just no best case scenario where both those guys are healthy the entire season. So I don't even think you can have a best case above them just missing like a smaller amount of games. So
yeah, Zion's just such an X factor because he really can just take over a game and just win it. Most of these NBA games are within 8 points, and if you can just feed it to him 6 straight possessions, you've really got a chance kind of any time. Okay, well then, speaking of the Grizz Pelicans rivalry, head to head in the preseason tournament, Jake, who do you have between the Grizzlies and the Pelicans?
This would be a very competitive game with everybody healthy and available. It would be a lot more competitive than I think some people think, but I would take Memphis, just pedigree and all of that, like we've always said. But it would be fun. I hope we get to see a couple of these healthy head-to-heads this year.
Yeah, it would be really fun to see Zion and Valanciunas against Triple J and Steven Adams. That would be a lot of weight getting moved around or not getting moved around, staying put. I think that this would be a really, really good game. Because
you're tempted to pick the Pelicans. I can feel it. You're tempted to pick the
I'm tempted too.
You may do it.
No, I'm not going to, I don't think. But if we are assuming that Zion is healthy for this because he's healthy right now, right? Is kind of the assumption that maybe I am going to pick the Pelicans.
Hey. I mean, they were in the talk in the first 29 games of the season of being the 1 seed last year. Like they were in the top 4 with Zion. Like they are a very good team when he plays because everybody else gets to play the way that they are comfortable and fill the role. And they do have some good wing depth. Like I just am so down on it's like a Kyrie conversation, right? It's like I can't allow myself to feel an optimistic scenario for them because it's just it never happens.
Yeah.
So
I totally we're on the same page as far as the season outlook and all the questions for the season outlook.
But this one game.
But for this one game, it just feels right. I'm gonna say the Grizz drop a game in the preseason tournament and lose to the lowly Pelicans. It hurts, but it doesn't. Like you said, it feels whenever you look at the matchup and you go, okay, the thing for me is they have Herb Jones and they have BI.
Yeah.
And if BI's got that length where it's if Zion's down there banging around and Jonas is keeping Adams somewhat contained on the boards, unless Zaire Williams is going to go out there and go toe to toe with BI, we don't have that type of matchup, And CJ will play good defense on Ja, and Herb Jones would play good defense on Bane.
Their length would bother the Grizzlies for sure.
For sure. All right.
Yeah.
Didn't see it coming. I thought we were about to just both cruise through the Pelicans, but no. An upset. Wow. I'm sure the listenership is glad that we've got a change now. Oh, now.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, I'm making the Pelicans lose as soon as I can here. That hurt. That pains me to have to do. What a trash franchise. All right. Next we have, ooh, this list is so good. The NBA is so stacked. Next we have the Sacramento Kings. Last year's number 3 seed, coming in right behind the Memphis Grizzlies. They finished up 48-34, hosted a playoff series for the first time in how many years? Wasn't it like 20 years?
Oh yeah, it was a long time.
It was a long time. It was the
Yeah,
longest
since the
streak in
Weber,
sports.
it was like since the Chris Webber
Yeah,
teams, right? Asia.
yeah. But they're the new look, light the beam Kings. They have a starting rotation of De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Huerter, Harrison Barnes, Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis, and then coming in as reserves, Davion Mitchell, Malik Monk, Chris Duarte, Sasha Vezenkov. Vezenkov?
He's a EuroLeague guy.
Mm.
Came over this year.
Oh, really? Alex Lynn, Jalen Noel, Trey Lyles, Keon Ellis, Kessler Edwards. JaVale McGee was a pickup in the offseason for the Kings that could be somewhat impactful come the postseason. I wouldn't expect it to matter too much in the regular season or maybe even the preseason tournament. But if you watch the Kings get eliminated last year by the Warriors and kind of the lack of effectiveness in crunch time from Sabonis, you could see McGee playing a critical role in any kind of postseason run that they might or might not make. And then they also have Scal Labasserie from you remember him?
I do.
He was like the number 1 overall high school recruit and went to
Memphis.
Or
Kentucky, yeah, but from Memphis, right?
Yeah, he was gonna go to Memphis and then went to Kentucky and then like never played.
Yeah, Lausanne, I think.
And maybe.
So
there's 2 guys on this team that I've always loved. I've always loved De'Aaron Fox and I've always loved Malik Monk. Always been big fans of those guys. Just 2 super athletic guys who play hard and seem to rise to the occasion. Whether they make or miss the shots, I've never been like, oh, Malik Monk just no-showed there in the 4th. I've never thought, oh, De'Aaron Fox didn't bring it right there. Keegan Murray, I think, is really good, not just because we share the same last name. I think he's got an NBA body and he's got a quick release and he's got a high release. And so he can get his shot off from the perimeter anytime that he needs to. He doesn't seem to be a huge liability on defense. He's not the most switchable guy. He's not the most athletic guy. But if you're running him out there with some length, like the Kings do seem to have, and a guy like Sabonis, then, maybe you can get away with it. Looking forward to the postseason. I'm out on the Kings because I watched Domantas Sabonis be ineffective whenever it mattered. And, and I can't unsee it.
It's tough.
So I am. Do we have the over under on them?
Oh yeah, they're my bad. Their over under total is 44.5. So same as the Pelicans.
Ooh.
And they won 48 last year. So that's actually a good launching point for my take on them this season. Really like the Kings. I've been up to Sacramento. I live like an hour, less than an hour away, maybe an hour with traffic. So it's like it's a quick shot up there. It's great to actually see games there instead of going to the Chase Center with this Warriors because it's way cheaper. And actually, they have a great place in Sacramento, a great arena. And
so you've lit the beam in person?
I haven't lit the beam. I didn't get to go last year. Just wasn't able to go last year. But in the previous years, I'd always go see him at least once, play the Grizzlies and maybe some others. But they had the best injury luck in the league last year, and they had the most minutes played of their starting 5. They know who they are. They And I think that like just with the way the NBA goes, I hate to have like a injury or availability thing be such a huge downer or a huge factor, but it is just is the way it is. I think this year, I don't think they will be as strong as last year, but they did build some more depth. I think like I like Colby Jones, the guy they drafted. He had a bunch of threes the other night in a game in preseason too. So I like that. I think they've done a good job. Mac Brown's a good coach. I like Keegan Murray, like you said. And I think Sabonis is a good regular season kind of center, but like you said in the playoffs, I think he has foul trouble as well. People talk about Jaren's foul trouble, but Sabonis is right up there with Jaren and like the most fouls per minutes played or something. So um I think they're over that win total. I don't know that they're going to be like better than they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they'll, and maybe they suffer a seed. Maybe they're like 4 or 5 versus 3. Because I think the Suns and the Warriors and the Lakers are going to be better in the regular season than they were last year. But I really like this team. And like I said, they know who they are. And that's a really strong thing that's really important in the NBA. Like when you have young players mixed in with veterans, like knowing who you are and knowing how you're going to play and approach every game. And so I really do. I think they're going to be a solid, competitive team once again. I think they're going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I think that they'll do okay in the regular season. I would take the under here just because, like you mentioned, with the injury luck that they had. Also, there are certain seasons where teams just have it, and the Kings just had it last year. Late game situations, the Kings won a lot of those games, and that's just something that's hard to repeat in the NBA. As much as I like Keegan Murray, I wouldn't be surprised by a bit of a sophomore slump. It's very hard to find someone who excels as a rookie that excels even more as a sophomore. It's fair. It's just, even if you end up having a great third year in the rest of your career, it's hard to do it that second year as you become more focused in by opposing coaches.
And people have a scouting report on you too.
Yeah. And, it's not like, oh, here's this rookie. It's okay. Keegan Murray, we know who he's a known quantity now. And so I would go under there. But I think that they'll still be in the mix. I wouldn't be surprised to see them avoid the play-in tournament and come in as a 6 seed or 5 seed. Top 3 seems very optimistic and very rose-colored glasses, I think.
Yeah,
and
I would agree.
And I still don't think that they're a championship caliber team. It's not championship caliber roster. Anytime you're relying on Harrison Barnes as a starter and Kevin Huerter, like
who they re-signed and brought back.
Yeah, and I don't hate him. It's just whenever you're talking about championship caliber, anyone that's going to contend, those just aren't names that you're going to see on those rosters. So, all right, you have Grizz versus Kings is your matchup.
So this, like season long, I think the Grizzlies are going to be better. I would think they would fare in the playoffs better, but just due to the fact that the Kings know who they are, they played the Warriors so well last year in the playoffs. Coming off that, like I think it would almost be a disservice to take the Grizzlies over them, seeing that there are a lot of changes with the Grizzlies roster this year. Even if we are looking at a healthy Grizzlies roster, there's still some stuff, like the Grizzlies know who they are, but there's still some stuff with the wings that need to be figured out there in the rotations. And I think Sacramento, like I said, they're going to be pretty confident going into a game like this. So I'd probably take the Kings over the Grizzlies in one game. Like it's tough to do, but I don't want to just pick the Grizzlies in every game. And I think this is the type of team.
I mean, we're not even halfway through the league yet, but
I know. I mean, believe me, I could probably run through. There's a few that I would, but I'll take the Kings here.
Taking the Kings.
Kings.
Wow. What an upset. I will be taking the Pelicans. I think the Pelicans, the only way that the Pelicans lose this game is the only way the Kings win this game is if De'Aaron Fox just goes insane on CJ McCollum. And I think that there's too much length. I think that there's too many defenders, too many options that you can throw at them. And then the other thing is whenever you have that second unit coming in, I think that Alvarado's a disruptor against the Kings.
Yeah.
The way that the Kings eke out good shots and do a good job of knocking them down, you throw a little bit of disruption into that, and a lot of possessions can go poorly quickly. And so I'm going to have the Pelicans moving on in the preseason tournament. So we have the Pelicans and the Kings almost halfway through the league. The teams that have lasted. All right, next up. Oh, man, I hate that you just eliminated the Grizz. This would have been fun. The Boston Celtics.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Okay, Boston Celtics.
They are at, get it out of the way early, they're at 54.5.
Woo, you gotta be out your damn mind.
Yes.
That's crazy. Yes. 54.5. Is that the highest?
I believe it's the highest. They're higher than the Nuggets. Let's see if they're higher than the Bucks.
They finished 57.
Yeah, they're highest.
They finished 57-25 last year. So 3 games worse than last year as a loser. We'll run through their roster real quick. They have Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis. Off the bench, they have Peyton Pritchard, Al Horford, Sam Hauser, O'Shea Brissett, Luke Cornett, Delano Banton, Lamar Stevens, Neemias Queta, James Banks III, J.D. Davidson. That's what it says. That's listed.
What it says. I'm not arguing.
That's what's listed. Great starting rotation. Incredible starting rotation. Just running through it. Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis. If everybody's healthy, Derek White's not a bad, weak link on that. I just don't know. Once you get past that, what are we doing here? We've got Al Horford. There's no way that he's more of a player coach at this point in my mind. He's not doing anything in the regular season. He's not bending games for you. He's not going to be the backbone of a top 10 defense whenever he's on the court. It's just not going to happen. Nope. Peyton Pritchard, who's a fine player. I like Peyton Pritchard. He's whatever. But yeah, it's a really top-heavy team, probably the most top-heavy roster that we've seen so far. And when you throw in a little bit of injury history with Kristaps, who I like, I've always liked the unicorn. I like KP just fine. But another guy he's 7'3", and injuries are a real problem. And if he's healthy, they could be really, really good. But again, they're top heavy, and those minutes, unless they're just going to play their guys all season, 54 seems like a lot. 54.5 seems like a lot. And I know that a lot of Boston fans were happy to get rid of Marcus Smart, but that means the leaders of your team are now Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And those are not guys that I would follow into like a food fight, much less a war. So I don't know how I feel about the over-under yet. I feel like that's hot. That's pretty high for a team that is putting in a lot of new pieces, a team that's been together for a while, trying to figure out how they play together. I don't know. I could see some growing pains, and nobody likes to no-show in games that don't matter like Jason Tatum does.
Yes. Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, their top 6 is good. I've heard people say that maybe their top 6 is the best top 6 in the league, which I don't know if there's if we're giving awards out for that or not, but there's a lot of new awards in the NBA. But
it's true. It's probably they name that after somebody.
Yeah. Look, I mean, 54.5 is a lot of wins. 57 last year. That's only been that. They started out the year. I looked at it here. The first 26 games, they went they lost 5 games. So they were 21-5 through the first 26 games last year, just looking at the big win streaks with 3 overtime losses. So that was a incredible start last year. They were the hottest team on earth. Mm-hmm. And they cooled off, obviously, but like that's kind of that's an outlier start. And you a couple of those games go one way or the other. You're looking at a 54 win team last year. So I think for that, this number, I would probably lean under with the new changes. And I don't think they're as deep. Like a lot of people are, like you said, the front court is very thin. Very thin, and the guys they have there, one of them's old, and Al Horford, and the other one's injury prone, and Porzingis, who, of course, he had his healthiest season last year for the bottom dweller Wizards. Of course, he did. Do you think he's going to have back-to-back seasons like that? I don't think so. I do love watching him play, but I think you have to assume that he's not going to be there every night. And I don't know how they withstand a full NBA season with that thin of a front court. And then, like you said, I mean, Tatum and Brown are by far the leaders now. Marcus Smart is gone. We'll see if they're ready for that. I've heard numerous times on podcasts, I'm sure you have as well, that Smart was trying to play too big of a role on this team. And I don't know that that's true. Maybe he's obviously not an all-star, but I don't know that this team does what they do in the last 3 or 4 years without him being the leader on that in the locker room. So there's a lot here.
The thing about being a leader is like, it's whoever goes out and takes it,
Yeah.
If Jason Tatum had a different demeanor about him, then there would be no conversation about Marcus Smart. Whenever someone who is up for taking on the leadership role arrives, that person takes it. That's what being a leader means. You don't have to ask for it. That's not leading.
It just happens.
Let's also not forget that a month and a half ago, Drew Holiday said that he was going to play one more year and then retire.
Yeah.
And then they were like, well, you're getting traded. And he was like, oh, well, then if I've got to go work for some extra money, then, oh, no, I was just kidding. I'm going to stay here the long haul.
We get that extension.
Yeah. This
is a very expensive team. I think they're good. They're really good, but I think there's a lot of, for a new analogy, there's a lot of, exits on the highway here that they could take that see them having a subpar season or a more disappointing season than last year. Still think they'll be tough in the playoffs if they're healthy. They'll be a tough out, but I don't feel great. I just don't know. There's a lot of questions. I just have more questions than it seems like a lot of people have. I think you do too, about this roster. And, Derek, I don't know. I like Derek White. I like Drew Holiday. They're going to be really good defensively. But, Jaylen Brown just got paid huge contract. I don't really know how I feel about Jaylen Brown, going forward, how much, it's easy to get criticized when you have that huge number after your name in the team. Whatever.
You're talking about the turnovers? You're talking about his turnovers?
Well, the turnovers. I'm just talking about the salary.
That number.
People's opinion of you starts to switch sometimes when you go from being the guy making 15 to 20 million a year to the guy making 45 to 50 million a year.
Yeah.
Sometimes it starts to expect, as they should, right? As they should. It's not an unfair criticism. So I'm just interested to see how a lot of things play out. I would probably go from just what we've talked about, probably under that win total. I had to put some.
I think so. I think that they'll be, if they're healthy, they'll be a tough out in the playoffs. Obviously, I mean, they've got big name players who can rise to the occasion whenever the lights are on. And for the regular season, 54 just seems like a lot. You're counting on a lot of things meshing quickly on the front end, and you're asking for some good luck with the health of your two frontline guys in Horford and Porzingis. I mean, that's the thing. Like, Horford's old and Porzingis is injury prone. If those two guys go down, you don't Neemias Queta, Luke Cornett. Those are the names that you're looking at to play big minutes whenever this is a season where there are some talented centers. And
I
so
think they'll be in the buyout market or the trade market again. I mean, they still have some second rounders. I could see them going after some team trying to get rid of like a maybe past his prime center. I don't really have any targets off the top of my head, but I definitely think this is a team that'll probably make a move if they don't see if they once they start to realize that thin front court. So I guess that's they could improve during the season totally.
yeah. All right.
They're
Well,
definitely all in on this, so that they will spend if they will trade if they have to because they're all in on this roster
yeah.
financially.
Well, they better be because they've been at it for 4 years now. All right. Preseason tournament time. Kings, Celtics. Break it down for us.
I'm going to take the Celtics. They would probably love to face the Kings in the real playoffs due to the matchups here.
Yeah.
In the post, but yeah, I'll take the Celtics. They're more proven, and I think they're more talented on the wing, and they'd have some defensive guys to throw at De'Aaron to slow him down.
Yeah. Yeah, Derek White would be a nuisance for sure.
Yeah.
Pelicans, Celtics would be a fun matchup.
That would be.
Probably won't see that in the finals.
Probably not.
One game, I'm going to, with the variance of how the shooting can go and with the length that the Pelicans can have to force Celtics into some uncomfortable shots, I'm going to take the Pelicans here. I think they push them around down around the rim. If you're just relying on Porzingis and Horford, I'm taking Zion, a healthy Zion, and a Valanciunas 10 times out of 10 to win the rebound margin, to defend the rim a little bit better. As long as Kristaps he hasn't been a impactful guy at the rim since he's really been in New York. It seems like not only is he not around the rim that often, he just doesn't. He's not that imposing of a figure, especially physically. Whenever you talk about those thick boys down in New Orleans. So I'm going to take the Pelicans again. God dang it.
Well, the thing you have to realize now is you're 3 to 4 games in with the Pelicans, so an injury's coming. They're 3 to 4 games into the preseason tournament, so
that's true.
You're going to have to worry about it. You're going to have to factor that into your Pelicans pick going forward.
That's true. We can't have more than 5 games in a row with a healthy team. All right. Next up, our favorite landing spot. The NBA's favorite landing spot, the Houston Rockets. The best landing pad there at NASA.
This is a fun one.
The Houston Rockets with new head coach Ime Udoka. He brought in some guys that he wanted, apparently, that he had to say in, and apparently said no to the whole James Harden thing. And so he's going to be fielding a team consisting of Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Jabari Smith Jr., Alperen Sengun. I'm thinking of the hockey player. Amen Thompson, Reggie Bullock, Tari Eason, Jock Landale, Aaron Holiday, Cam Whitmore, Jayshawn Tate, Boban Marjanovic. Who else? I think that's all. That's
probably the guys getting time.
Yeah, that's
Oladipo's on this team because of the Kevin Porter Jr. trade, but I don't think he's going to play.
Oh, is he still injured?
Yeah, I think he's probably done. Their over-under is 31.5 wins, and they won 22 last year. They were tied with the San Antonio Spurs for the second worst record in the league.
Ooh, they got a 9-game jump.
To be fair, Steven Silas was nice. Seems like a nice guy, but a very bad coach. So
yeah, but I can't blame anything on that guy. That roster was terrible his entire time, and they didn't want to win. Yeah, like they weren't trying to win anything. 31.5 is a lot. That's a lot for a team in a stacked West, is my opinion.
Yeah.
You're talking, the only teams. The best I think that the Houston Rockets can hope to be is fourth from the bottom in the West. And last year that was 37 wins, but the Jazz started off on a tear. They should have been closer to 31, 32 wins. And the Blazers, I just don't see it. I definitely wouldn't put any money on the over. I mean, you do have Ime Udoka.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I just don't know. I think if this team was in the East, that I would give it to them. I think that there's enough wins that they could scrape together. But I think that other coaching staffs are going to have respect for this team. I don't think that a lot of people are going to sleep on this team as much as you would think, especially early in the season. And then if they don't have it going early in the season, they're too young to think that they honestly have a chance at anything. I can't imagine them going for it, right? They don't have the assets to go land a huge player. Or do you think that they do?
I don't think that the assets, I mean, I'm a little different on them. I really think they've got some good youth there.
I do too.
I really like, so I mean, they could. I don't think they're going to trade anybody, but I don't think they have their own pick. I think the Nets have it. So maybe it's like top 4 protected or something, but I think, I mean, I was using the same kind of logic as you looking at the bottom 4 teams in the West. I think they're going to be better than the Spurs. I think they'll be better than the Trailblazers. I think they'll be better than the Jazz, who I think, spoiler alert, are going to be a pretty decent amount worse than last year. I think they'll be right there at that, fourth from the bottom, fourth or fifth from the bottom. And I think there's enough. If I had to take it, I'd probably take the over on them, just because the likelihood of some of their young guys hitting with the veterans they brought in, I could see it. I mean, the thing is, Van Fleet and Brooks, they play a lot of games. And,
right. But is
Jeff
Fred
Green
Van Vliet playing a lot of games for you? Is Dylan Brooks playing a lot of games for you a good thing?
That's a fair question to ask. I like Thompson. I like Cam Whitmore. Tari Eason's good. I mean, they have a lot of fun wings that if they hit, or that Udoka can, who we saw really turn it on with the Celtics. I mean, I know that was a short-lived stint there, but if he can really get those guys
kind of
into
blew his load.
He kind of blew his load there. He, it's I don't know. I feel like he's going to be able to get the best out of them if anybody can. And I don't know. I lean over just because I think they're going to be fun night to night. There would be one of my league pass teams for sure. But I think they've got something building here. Jabari Smith Jr., I don't think we've really mentioned that much. I think he's going to be fun. I think he's going to be a piece that fits in like a starting lineup as like a 4.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like the Rockets. They're going to be fun this year.
I think that they're going to be fun too. I just think that 31.5 that's a large jump.
That's fair.
Just looking at their draft capital, they have Brooklyn's number 1 pick this year. They do not have their own number 1 pick, but Brooklyn's pick is completely unprotected, and the Nets probably aren't going to do that great. They also have the Thunder's 2nd round pick. They might get Golden State's 2nd round pick, and they have Brooklyn's 2nd round pick as well this year. So not a whole lot of incentive for them to tank. But
yeah.
And I think that Jabari Smith Jr. is going to take a leap. I think that we'll probably see quite a few highlights of him and go, "Oh, that's pretty good right there." I mean, I just saw him in summer league and just looked like a different guy. The confidence that he was shooting it with. I worry about, on a young team, what Dylan Brooks thinks his role is offensively.
Yeah, I didn't mention that. That's a key concern.
I watched Amen Thompson in this Spurs game the other night, kind of scrapping with Jeremy Sohan, and I was just kind of like, is that really what you want to do? That's the guy that you want to kind of get mixed up with in a preseason game? And so I think that Udoka is going to have obviously a good influence on the locker room, but also like this seems like a pretty immature team. When your veteran that you're bringing in to guide everyone is Dylan Brooks, I could see maybe a lack of focus at times, or maybe not enjoying the intensity of the locker room when you have Udoka and Brooks. So, I'm not crazy about Reggie Bullock. Like, there's just not anyone in the second, whenever you're talking about, second unit versus second unit, there's not anyone where I'm like, I know that guy's making plays. I know that guy's coming in and changing the tempo. They have some decent guys, but just not anyone that really stands out to me.
They'd have to have one of those young guys really pop in the second unit to give them something like Whitmore or Thompson, but that's rookies, right? So like you can't count on that or even project it.
Right. And so I don't see them starting off too well, and just because they're so young, and then the rest of the season might just be an experimentation. And so I wouldn't want to be betting on that a 10-game improvement, just me personally. Okay, so totally Celtics fair. Rockets, I'm assuming chalk here.
Yeah, Celtics for sure over the Rockets.
Okay. Let's see. I'm definitely taking the Pelicans. I think that they would beat them 7 times out of 7 in a 7-game series. I don't think that it would be very close. All right. Next on the list, we're halfway through. The Toronto Raptors are next up.
Toronto. They are, wow, lower than I thought. Their over-under is 36.5, and they won 41 last year. So that's a drop.
It's a 5-game
just losing
drop.
Fred VanVleet and Nick Nurse.
Man, I think FVV is worth something, huh?
I mean, if you take those, what they took them off 5 wins, you get those 5 wins to the Rockets, they're pretty close to 31.
That's disrespectful for the first guy that we're going to talk about on their roster, Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah.
Who just all the $85 million that he lost himself in Los Angeles, he might have made a third of that back during the FIBA World Cup.
Yeah.
He played really well for Germany. Well, I know he had one game where he was awful, but other than that, he played pretty well. They also have OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam, and Jacob Poeltl. Coming off the bench, Malachi Flynn, Gary Trent Jr., Jalen McDaniels, Chris Boucher. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Boucher.
Precious Akua, and then Grady Dick, Christian Coloco, Otto Porter Jr., Will Chamberlain's son, Garrett Temple, Jeff Downton Jr., Marquise Noel, Justice Winslow sighting. Wow. Thaddeus Young sighting. Wow.
They just have every former University of Memphis player on this team.
Really scraping the bottom of the waiver wire there, or the Toronto Raptors, to round out their preseason day roster. This team doesn't do anything for me.
No.
Who's their coach now?
Darko from the Grizzlies.
Darko, Rajanovic. That's right.
Yeah, that's I actually kind of like that. I mean, I'm a Darko fan. Doing the halftime interviews or whatever he would do.
Yeah.
So
I like Darko.
I like Darko, but I'm with you. I don't like this team that much.
I don't know where the threats are coming from offensively. I'm not guarding Dennis Schroeder. I'm not, Anunoby can knock down some threes, but he's not creating those threes. He's not creating that shot. Scotty Barnes, offensively, probably not an above average offensive player yet. And then Siakam, old spin move Siakam, like, I get it, dude. You're gonna take your 2 dribbles and you're gonna spin into the lane, and you're gonna hope that whenever you start facing the basket again, that's either gonna be open or there's someone there to throw it to. But it's not a great offense, and maybe Darko will change that. The 36.5 seems low. That seems like Vegas pushing it low so that people will take the over.
But that Vegas may be spot on there.
But that Vegas probably knows what they're doing because they're Vegas. I don't see anything on this team that gets me excited about being anywhere close to a 500 team.
No, I don't either. I think, first off, I think a lot of people got over their skis on Scotty Barnes. I don't think that, like, he kind of became like a Twitter blog boy kind of favorite with that rookie season. And I don't know that he's some potential all-star that we are waiting to break out. I don't know that he's that player. He's talented, but I don't know that we're waiting on some future potential max all-star guy in there. And Schroeder, I think while he did have a good summer, I think he's a little bit of a downgrade from Van Vliet. And, the whole team was basically in trade rumors, even currently in trade rumors, besides Scotty. Apparently he's untouchable. So
28% 3-point shooter.
28% 3-point shooter. I don't know if this, if Masai will ever actually make a trade or not with any of these guys. But I think this is a roster that is ripe for something random to happen, like a trade or I don't know. Like, I think that you could see some turnover here. They do owe their pick to the Spurs, I think, which is protected in maybe the lottery. I think you said it earlier, but I think it's like top 10 or top 14 protected. So, there may be a little incentive to stay in the lottery, maybe get some more talent there if you don't have a good start to the season. I'm not high on him. I don't like a lot of it. There's a lot of things thrown together. I think it's run its course. Nick Nurse was ready to get out of there. I'd probably lean on just staying away or taking the under and just predicting something crazy happens and they just kind of bottom out.
Yeah, speaking of them not ever trading anybody, their incoming draft stuff is pretty.
Yeah.
It's they just have their own pick and they don't have anybody else's pick.
Yeah, they were talking about trading
so
much at the deadline. Yeah, at the deadline, and it was like, they're going to get picks for Siakam, picks for Van Vliet, picks for
OG,
and then they ended up trading one of their own picks for Pirtle.
That's right.
Like,
yeah,
it was.
They're all clean after this year, but they do not have either of their picks this year.
Yeah, and it's like I think it may be protected. I don't know,
yeah,
but
it's top 6.
Yeah,
top
so like
6
there's
this year,
more.
next year, and 2026.
So it may be hard for them to get. Maybe they get lottery luck, but like maybe if they're like really starting out slow, they just commit to it and trade away OG and trade away Siakam. But it doesn't. It's just a roster that doesn't. It feels like it's run its course, and the NBA overall is better. So I think they're going to drop below 500 and probably be around that 35, 36.
Yeah. Yeah.
About like the Pacers last year or the Mavs, around 38, 35.
Yeah. I think that's probably a good under, especially if they're trying to protect their pick. Yeah. And if you're gonna scrap things, you want to do it your first year with a new coach.
Yep.
So there shouldn't be any pressure on him to have to win early. And yeah, Dennis Schroeder, I like him, but he seems to play well when the lights are on, and there aren't going to be a whole lot of lights on Toronto this season. So,
no.
All right, Celtics,
I don't know if
Raptors.
Drake's shown up to many games.
Yeah, right. Celtics, Raptors. Who you got?
Celtics
going away with it. I'm going to take the Pelicans. Somehow.
Did you know when you first took the Pelicans over the Grizzlies that you were going to still have the Pelicans?
I knew that unless some good teams popped up, that the Pelicans were probably going to run for a bit.
I think it's a very interesting conversation though, because like the healthy, ready to play version of the Pelicans is really, really good.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers, who finished last season as the 4 seed at 51 and 31. God, the East is terrible. What's their over under this year?
Their over under this year, I believe, is right around. Let me think of. See, Cleveland is 50.5. Wow.
So right on it.
Ah,
Right on it. Last year's record is a winner. Anything else is a loser. I don't think they had a ton of changes to their roster. They have Darius
no.
Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, which was their starting five last year. Coming off the bench, they have Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, George Niang, Damian Jones, Dean Wade, Tristan Thompson, Ty Jerome, Craig Porter Jr., Imani Bates is on the Cavs. I saw he had a good preseason game the other night.
Yeah, he had a good summer league too.
Yeah. I think Cavs were the team that everyone was most disappointed with in the playoffs. I bet on the Knicks to win that series. I didn't see how the Cavs are ever going to win anything with two of the shortest guards in the league. It's really that simple for me. As far as playoff contender, anything like that, this team ain't doing it. I don't think. Not built to win in the playoffs. Evan Mobley is very underrated. Pretty much single-handedly from Bill Simmons is what it seems. He single-handedly created the Evan Mobley hype machine. I've watched a number of Cavs games, and I've never once thought that's young Kevin Garnett out there.
Yeah,
It's pretty
not at all.
blasphemous to even throw that around, in my opinion. Jared Allen's a good center. But again, I just don't see, after seeing what we saw last year in the playoffs, I think that this team's going to come into the season with a pretty big hangover of who they are and whether or not what they're building there is building towards something that's going to be successful in the postseason. I think that can really drag on a team, especially if you start to run into a rough patch. I think it's going to be very apparent this entire season that they have the exact same problems that they had last year. They have the exact same roster. Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are going to go off. They're going to have big games. They're going to win some games. 50.5, expecting that team to repeat their same record back is pretty bold, unless you're just assuming that the bottom half of the East is just chalk the entire time, and those are all going to be wins. I would take the under there, and I'm not a big fan of this team outside of meaningless regular season games.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do like that I think they overpaid, but I do like that they added Strus and Niang who can shoot. I like that wrinkle into their lineup. So if they are, which I don't predict them to, but if they are able to repeat what they did last year, that does give you two more guys on the wing that can, play minutes for you in the playoffs, who have played playoff minutes, a lot of playoff minutes. But like you said, there's already rumors about the Donovan Mitchell situation and him not being long for there and wanting to get out. I think that's going to loom over their head. Small guards in the backcourt. Evan Mobley, year 3, like you said, I think it's a little bit overhyped, and they're a good regular season team, so maybe they surprise. I mean, we're going to have teams. I mean, you look at it, 2 teams in the West, 150 plus, 4 teams in the East, 150 plus. You're probably going to have 5 to 7 teams win 50 plus games. So somebody has to do it. Don't know that it's the Cavaliers. I think it's going to flip more to the West this year with more 50 win teams. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. It feels like there could be, and I'm not a big, JB Bickerstaff, everybody loves him as like a guy. And I think he's a great, seemed like a great guy when he's in Memphis. I don't think he's that great of a coach. And I was surprised they stuck with him instead of bringing somebody in when they did the Mitchell trade.
Right.
But I think this is going to be one of those years where they realize they have the Donovan Mitchell issues, the coaching issues. I think that's going to be kind of one of those learning road bump seasons for them.
Yeah. Unless it really, really works, I'm not a big fan of trotting out the same core. And I just felt like we all saw that really didn't work. And you've added a little bit of shooting. Yeah. But the problem remains with your two main ball handlers. And Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 50.5 just seems high. You know, I'd
Yeah.
almost I'd almost think that there's a better shot of a team like the Magic shooting way, way up
Yeah.
and taking one of those higher spots rather than the Cavs holding on to the 3 seed
I would
there.
agree. A team like a team
We'll
like
see.
that, or a team like the Heat making a midseason trade or something, or the Knicks making a trade, or just being better this year. Some team like that jumping into that, or Philly just looking really, really good out of like even though the seems down right now, I
Right.
would project those teams to jump them or stay above them.
If you had to get rid of Garland or Mitchell, who you getting rid of? And that's including the rumors that Mitchell doesn't want to be there.
Well, I would go ahead and shop Mitchell if that's what you think he's going to leave. I would definitely keep Mitchell over Garland outside of the contract scenarios, but I would probably go ahead and shop him to get. I think you can prevent yourself from really taking a bunch of steps back if you just admit that you're probably not going to keep him, but you have Mobley and you have Garland and you have some other guys there like that you can keep that core together and then bring some other pieces and some picks and stuff in. So I would probably go ahead and eat the shit right now. Like just go ahead and get it over with. And trade him to New York. Try to really get ahead of the game and like fleece somebody in a trade is what I would try to do. Like really just hold him over a barrel and be like, if you want him, come get him. Like you're just gonna take all you have.
Yeah. They still own their draft pick this year.
But
They
they
don't.
traded some to the Jazz. I don't know
Yeah,
when they start.
they traded next to 2025, no protection. Yikes. 2026 pick swap.
Yeah.
2027 no protections. 2028 no protections. Or no, that's still the pick swap.
Swap. Yeah.
2029 no protections, and 2030 no
Three
protections
unprotected.
on a second rounder for
Yeesh.
Spurs.
Yeah, if and
But
I
yeah,
I had
three
forgotten
unprotected
about
for
that.
Mitchell plus a pick swap.
I had forgotten about the amount of picks that they traded for Mitchell. I just it kind of left my brain. But I definitely think you should just really get like if Mitchell's not going to sign with you, dude, you got to recoup something because it was fun for a year. Maybe it'll be fun for a little bit this year, but like you can't with not owning your picks, you can't just let him walk or which is kind of I think he has like 1+1 left. Is it's like a player option at the end of this year, maybe. I'll check that, but if you have any comments on it, but yeah, I just it's tough to just sit there and let Mitchell walk for and then you're in a bad spot with those unprotected picks.
Yeah, I'm sure that someone would trade for Mitchell. Uh, if we're just talking about him as a player and what you're projecting out, he's how old now? He's 27.
7.
This is his 6th year in the league. Um, he's just an undersized guy, and yeah, it would be interesting to see who would trade for him.
Yeah.
It's hard to find a team that all they're missing is a 6'1" shooting guard.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's hard to find a team that's the missing piece that they need is the 6'1" shooting guard that's going to put up 27
But
shots a game.
he was like first team All NBA, had a great season. Like you could probably get somebody that's just drunk on having that talent. Maybe like sounds like he wants to play in New York. I would see if Brooklyn's willing to like give you a bunch of shit for him. Honestly, like
Send him in
I
San
would
Antonio. Put him with Wemby.
shoot into San Antonio. Get some like if you could recoup 3 or 4 picks in like a couple of like a couple of salary throw-ins or take a chance on somebody. I think it'd be worth it just to keep you don't want to just like have a flash in the pan over 1 or 2 years and then go back to being the Cleveland Cavaliers the non LeBron James Cleveland Cavaliers. You don't want to go back to that.
Yeah.
So I would try to string it together and build a consistent core.
Yeah. Interesting where he might land. There's some options that I'm thinking about, would the Hornets want him? Would the
Yeah.
would the Sixers want him?
Yeah.
Bulls couldn't do anything with him, but there's some landing spots for him. Yeah. I just don't see it being a long-term solution with those two guys together. Never did, even whenever they first did it. All right, Celtics Cavs in your head-to-head.
Oh, actually, I mean, with the front court issues with the Celtics, I think it'd be a fun game because there's part of me too that even though like size wise, it's like, Mitchell and Garland are so small. Mitchell's a freaking gamer.
Mm-hmm.
And part of me is like, almost feels like he would be more up for that game than Tatum would be. So I think it would be a good ass game, but I think I would take the Celtics and just the size and stuff that they have on the wing there.
I thought you were going to do it.
No.
Looking at Pelicans, Cavs, it'd be a good game. You'd really figure out if Evan Mobley's worth anything.
Guard Zion.
Yeah. But again, with the length, you have CJ McCollum, you have BI, you have Herb Jones to throw at those two guards. I just think it would really throw off the timing. And unless Mobley has already taken a step offensively, I just don't see them being able to put up enough points because they're probably not winning the rebounding battle. It would be a good game, but I don't think Mobley's up to the task, and I think that Mitchell would struggle.
Yeah,
against that perimeter D. So, God dang it, another win for the Pelicans. Something's got to change. All right, not changing here. Next up, the Detroit Pistons.
Detroit Pistons.
The Detroit Pistons, who finished with the worst record in the league last year at 17-65. Yeah.
Pretty bad.
Pretty bad. What's their over-under this year?
27.5. A little bit higher than I thought.
Woo!
But I guess that's still really low.
10 games?
10 game improvement. Cade Cunningham back.
Man.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a tough one. Let's jump in on their roster.
Let's take a look at the full roster. We have Cade Cunningham is back. Osar Thompson, Bojan Bogdanovic, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duran, Monty Morris, Jaden Ivey, Alec Burks, Isaiah Livers, Marvin Bagley III, Killian Hayes, James Wiseman, Joe Harris, Jonte Porter, Marcus Sasser. What's the opposite of top heavy? Bottom bound. I almost like aside from Cade Cunningham, I almost like the second unit better than the first unit.
Yeah.
I know Isaiah Stewart wants to fight a couple people. Bojan is, he's a shooter. He's gonna do what he does. I'm just not expecting anything from Osar Thompson in his rookie year. He's a zero to me, like as far as game wins, or I can't imagine seeing more than one or two highlights where it's like, look what Osar Thompson did at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Jaden Ivey didn't really show too much. Monty Morris didn't show too much. He's a kind of a fifth fiddle kind of guy. And Cade Cunningham, I'm excited to see him back on the court, but I don't know if you're worth 10 wins, bro. 10 wins? That's a lot of wins.
That's a lot.
That's over half of the wins that they had last year.
Yep.
That you're saying that he's going to add into it? I mean, that's pretty bold. Who's their coach now?
It was Dwayne Casey, but I think they got Monty Williams in there from the Suns.
That's right.
Highest paid coach in the league.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah, I love Cade. I mean, coming out of high school, I was excited to see him. He was one of those guys in the high school folklore kind of coming out. People were anticipating him. The weird thing is I kind of like their young guys, and they have a couple pieces they could trade, or they could, like Bogdanovich and Alec Burks. They could help young guys improve. They could raise the floor of this team, but the floor is 17 wins, so it's like you're raising a low floor.
Yeah.
So it's not really like, this is not a play-in team or anything like that. To me, there's like a scenario where a couple of their young guys hit. They have a lot of big guys. I think I like Durant, Beef Stew, Isaiah Stewart. He's a fun guy. He's a big body. They've got Bagley and Wiseman, who they're just trying to re-energize everybody's career over there. But they're not going to be. 27 is low, but I probably would just stay away from it, because I feel like there's probably more of a chance they go over than they go under, just if like they put something together. But it's more than likely they're probably in that like 20 to 25 range.
Yeah, I see 28 wins as being a little bit out of their reach.
Yeah, it's just
that
too.
There's
not enough tanking teams out there that are going to be motivated to lose, in my opinion, unless something crazy just happens. There's just not enough teams out there that are like tanking.
Right. And I know Monty Williams is a culture builder and all that, but it's a young team that's going to be trying to find their identity rather than a team that's executing on a plan. And their pick this year is top 18 protected, and then it goes down from there over the next few years. So, they're probably not going to be out of the bottom 18 anyway, even if they played played as hard as they could. But they do have their pick, and so they probably want to be as high up in the lottery as possible. I would definitely go under on the Pistons. 27.5. Okay, Celtics Pistons.
We're both. I'm picking Celtics. Yeah,
yes.
I think your Pelicans are making their dream run here.
Yeah, they are. I'm sure. I don't think it's going to last.
Number one Pelicans fan.
Last. Right. Okay. Well, they're going to make it past here. Probably not too much to say about this team. The Washington Wizards.
Yeah, they're quickly on their numbers to get it out of the way, because I think their roster is going to be pretty boring. 23.5 over under this year, and they won 35 last year, but there's been a lot of turnover there. So
yeah, speaking of turnover, the current roster looks like this: Tyus Jones, Jordan Poole, Bilal Coulibaly, Kyle Kuzma, Daniel Gafford, and then the second unit allegedly is DeLon Wright, Corey Kispert, Denny Avdija. Avdija? I don't know.
Yeah, I think Avdija.
Danilo Gallinari, Taj Gibson, Landry Shamet, Mike Muscala, Patrick Baldwin Jr., Xavier Cooks, Johnny Davis, Ryan Rollins, Eugene Omoyori, and that about rounds it out. Yeah. This is a bottom 5 roster in the NBA. 100%. No one on this team is planning on being here in 3 years. This team is not working towards an identity. This team is not trying to execute any type of blueprint. This is a smorgasbord, total scrap heap rebuild with a Jordan Poole on top. 23.5 in your bra. They're not winning any games. This is going to be a bottom 3 team in the league.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right in line with you there. It sucks for Tyus, but he's going to be able to run a team, and maybe he can get flipped in another trade. Poole's going to be horrible to watch.
They're already having scuffles.
It's going to be a bad team. It's Coulibaly's interesting, but he's not going to. They're going to be really bad. So I'm going to take the Celtics once again over them. I hate that I'm picking the Celtics too. I should have just taken the Grizzlies over the Kings.
Regretting. Yeah, Tyus Jones, great backup point guard. I like Tyus, watched him for years. I've always said I had a big issue with his pace of play as far as being a number one, you know, ball handler on a team. He plays at his own pace, and sometimes you just can't do that against in games that matter, in situations that matter. Let's see. Washington has a pick swap with Phoenix if they want it. They're probably going to keep their own pick, is going to be my bold prediction. And then they give their pick. Okay, so their pick is top 12 protected. And then if they keep it, then they can swap it to Phoenix or take Phoenix's. So I guess if they lose it, then Memphis gets the pick. Wow.
That's that weird pick where it's like it's like a weird protection thing on that.
So yeah, the Wizards have no incentive to win. They are looking at they're looking at holding on to their own pick. So yeah, we'll just move on from this crap team. We're gonna go chalk here. Celtics are moving on, and the Pelicans will not die. All right.
Hey, do you want to finish up like tomorrow?
Yeah, we can finish.
I got a couple things. Yeah, I gotta run, do a couple things. Just
we
got a soccer game in the morning.
Yeah, no worries. We got 10 teams left.
Yeah, we can knock that out tomorrow, dude.
Yeah, I'll put up like the first half. I'll work on the first half in the morning and get it and put it up as like a part one.
For sure, yeah. No, let me know if you need anything or whatever, have any questions about anything. I mean, for sure.
If GarageBand
messes up or whatever.